Welcome back to Diagonal Move. Turn 3 of Dawn of Empire. The Spanish are currently in the lead with 3 victory points, and we just need to look now at how the Spanish can retain that lead and hopefully get the lead over 6 points with the aim of winning the game. We do have fully half the game to go, perhaps slightly more than half the game to go, and the Americans have some reinforcements coming on this turn. It's going to be a challenge, no doubt about that. If you remember, I am playing as the Spanish, and I'm going through my thoughts on how to play the game as the Spanish, but the Americans, I will be pausing the camera and placing the orders off camera to retain that hidden movement element of the game that you would get if you were playing 2 players. So okay, let's begin with the new forces and orders phase. We take 2 American warships as reinforcements. We have the Marietta and the Oregon, one being a relatively powerful ship, the Oregon, and the other being relatively weak, which is the Marietta. They both come on in Key West, meaning that is an even more well stocked port full of ships. This big pile here are in Key West as well. The only other thing that remains to do for this phase is to flip over that reinforcement, that port of Havana, because you do not keep disrupted ports across turns. Meaning, of course, they can be attacked again and again by the fleets, and a potential victory point farm there for the Americans if the Spanish don't try and do something about that. For the Americans, well, I don't know, the Americans do seem to have the upper hand despite being behind on victory points because of the ease with which they can attack Havana and potentially even Cadiz here and really milk those VPs. So let's move on to the orders element of the first phase. Units that culled previously can now perform any order, and say ditto those that have anchored, which is this one, this one, this one. Transit units need to coal or anchor, which would be the ships in the Gulf of Mexico, which is just here at the top of the screen. And the patrol ships here, or the ships that are on patrol in the Narrows Abyssal here, must either coal or anchor as well. Wow, so going to be interesting turn for some of these Spanish ships. Okay, let us first start with the ones that need coal. Okay, what I'll do quite simply is take the coal order off the ones in the Yucatan Basin and place it there, with those in the Gulf Coast, and I'll also do the same thing for those in the Central Atlantic, placing that coal order onto the ships in the Narrows Abyssal. Okay, and I'll place those upside down just to remind myself that I have done those orders. Then we need to think about the other ships, don't we? The ships up in the east coast near Hampton Roads, just there, I really don't want them to stay there this turn, so I will probably give those a patrol order and move them here to the Atlantic, and just hope that these guys don't press forward any kind of attack on Cadiz, because there would be a somewhat uneven fight just there. But okay, let's do that. Let's place patrol on the ships outside Hampton Roads. Meaning we now have 3 ships that can do something else. kind of want to try to retain VPs as much as possible, so I may bring some down here to the Windward Passage and also the Puerto Rico Passage to get those VPs if we can, while also retaining VPs in the Atlantic. But if I do that, then the ports are very open to attack. Let's it's a tricky decision. It really is a tricky decision as to what we can do here, because if we attack Key West on the assumption that these ships are going out, it'd be a bit of a risk, but these guys here are quite powerful. We can maybe take Key West, or even go up to Hampton Roads on the assumption that they're going to come here. Okay, let's place a patrol order on that unit there while we think about what to do. There are 3 ships here and 2 ships there, so potentially what we could do is we could blockade this group, moving them to there, and then choosing to retain the blockade order on the mobile port. But then they could the Americans could easily block that with a patrol. I think what I'll do is I'll just have another patrol, the hope of retaining those VPs. I think that's what we'll do, because there's just too great a risk of all our forces being wiped off the board by these massive stacks. We may have to just leave the ports to defend themselves. I've run out of patrol orders, so we're going to have to place a transit here on these guys in the Atlantic. Yeah, if I was to anchor, I'd have to come back to the ports. So let's transit down to Puerto Rico Passage, gain VPs next turn. All right, cool. That's the orders done. We'll move on to the movement phase shortly, but I'll just pause the camera and do the orders for the Americans. Place the orders on the American ships. The big stacks have been split into 2 in both cases. So as the Spanish, what are we going to do? I think the first thing we'll do is just transit. Get these guys out of the way. They have a movement factor of 6, so that's 1. They can now anchor coal next turn to score some VP. So that's a nice, easy, straightforward move. These guys here are coaling, and I believe those guys are patrolling. This order was a patrol as well. What was this one? This one was a patrol. And yeah, this was the coal. Okay, so right, fine. We've coaled. Let's do this patrol first. I think the intention was to move up to the Gulf Coast, and that's a bit risky if we do that though. We could stay put and score 2 VPs. Let's move to the Yucatan halfway house. Stop any Americans coming down the back here, but also score us 2 VPs. Is that a sensible thing to do? Because we would give up control here. What's this one? This one patrolling as well. Do you know what? I'm just going to leave that where it is under a patrol order. Move this one here under a patrol order. If we're still there at the end of the game, that would give us 4 VPs in total. And this one, okay, patrol, we will go here. Right, cool. Okay, now interesting thing about this game that I realised relatively recently is that when you have an area that was under control previous turn, you still have to stop your movement, which is even though there's nobody there, as far as I understand it. So that's quite interesting. But But okay, that's the Spanish done. So for the Americans then, we have to be aware of these areas of control. How can we do that? So the Americans, okay, let's do the smaller stacks first. Anchoring, these guys will go to Key West. This group here are coaling. This group will patrol, and this group will patrol. Okay, so I think the sensible thing to do as the Americans is coming on the back, quite honest. So we will go patrolling this way. So 2, 3, 4 movement points needed. They have plenty more than that. That's fine. Here we'll do 2, 3, 4, 5. That's going to be a bit trickier. Moving at the speed of the slowest, they will have 5, so they're good to go to the Yucatan Straits. This group are blockading. They're going to come to Cadiz, where they are going to meet a patrolling Spanish fleet and will therefore be forced to stop. This group are raiding. But they can't really raid because of the patrol there, the control there. I've double checked and it does appear that you have to stop when you move an area that's under control from a previous turn. So these guys will either come here and stop, becoming part of the blockade, or they will come here and stop. While they won't be able to complete their raid, which they in theory should be able to get control gaining the VP, that looks like a good place for them to stop. Okay, so that's a fairly straightforward movement turn for both sides. Combat is going to potentially take place here and here. So let's start with the North Atlantic, likelihood that it may move on to become port combat. So the initiative will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 base for the Spanish, plus the die roll gives us a 9. So the Spanish have an initiative value of 9. The Americans, on that, for their part, have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then an additional 2. So they start with a base of 8. Wow. Okay. Chances are they're going to win. Yep. They have 11 in total, so they become the initiative player. Initiative player is blockading against a patrol, which means we have a roll of 1 to 5, resulting in combat. So let's roll the die. I have a 5, so we are combating. It's going to be another one of those brutal combats, I think, for the Spanish. But let's just pop this somewhere on the board. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. Just about, I think. Right, okay. It's a little bit big, this board, in terms of table space. Okay, so the initiative goes to the Americans, and the Spanish have a grand total of 3 soldiers, with Camara, their leader, on the first ship, the Carlos V. Shelley, part of the flying squadron, is the leader of the Americans on the Chicago as the front ship, with the San Francisco, the New Orleans, Brooklyn and the Texas also in the stack. Okay, cool. Begin combat then. 3 dice versus 3 dice, +1 and another +1, so a total of 4 dice apiece. Beginning with the Americans. So we have 2 disabled results and a hit, and we'll re-roll that hit, which is 6 damage. That ship is sunk, but don't forget we get to attack back before there is any effect. of the damage taking place, I've just realised I should have added an additional bunch of dice for the Brooklyn with the overlap, but that wasn't really necessary, so we won't worry about that for now. Then we have 5 dice plus a star, which is 6 in total for the San Francisco, with just a disabled result there. That's interesting. And then finally 2 dice from New Orleans on the Lepanto, and that is a disabled result as well. So the Spanish have had the floor wiped with them, but let's see what they do in return. So the Carlos V has 3 dice plus 1, which is 4 against the Chicago, misses everything. The Alfonso the 13th has just 2 dice. We don't carry that over because the star doesn't go on to the next one because the lead ship has been sunk. But nevertheless, we have a disabled and a hit. Rolling 3, the San Francisco is sunk. And then finally the Lepanto against New Orleans, 2 misses. Okay, quick round of combat there. We remove sunk and disabled units. The leader is of course killed on the sunken ship. The disabled units will move to one side, and we just check to see if we disengage. The Spanish have no ships left, so we do automatically disengage through gunfire, and those disabled ships go back to the nearest friendly port, which is this one, and then the squadron sitting off the coast of the North Atlantic fulfill the rest of their blockade order. The patrol for the Spanish just gets put to one side. So the fighting Cadiz, we are blockading, meaning we fight the full strength plus the defence rather than the mine strength. That's the key difference really between them and the raid. The blockade and the raid is whether you fight the mine strength or the gunfire strength. Really probably didn't need to take these off the board, but I did. So now we have 3 dice, 4 dice versus 9 to start with. So let's start with 4 dice for the Americans. And because we're fighting a port, 5s are hit rather than disabled results. So let's re-roll both of those. Oh my goodness, that's a 10. That ship has destroyed Cadiz in 1 attack. That's unbelievable, but we do have the 9 dice in return, which hopefully will do a little bit of something against the Chicago, but we'll see. Oh my word, would you look at that? There is not a single hit on 9 dice against that American ship. That's just unreal. And so the Cadiz is, the port of Cadiz is disrupted. The Americans will walk off with barely a scratch, relatively speaking, against such a well-defended port, and they will score a ton of VPs for doing that action. Okay, let's move the sunken ships on both sides to one side for a moment so I don't forget to calculate their VPs. Okay, next up we have these guys here in the Gulf Coast. They are coaling and the Americans are patrolling, meaning we just need to work out the initiative. We have 2, 3 base V initiative for the Spanish and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for the Americans. So rolling first for the Spanish, they have a total of 9. So let's give them a total of 9, and then the Americans have an initiative of 11. Okay, cool. They rolled a 4, so that will be 11 in total, meaning we have, unfortunately, a potential repeat of last time. But the initiative player is patrolling against a coal. Oh, actually, it's only a roll of 1 or 2. Results in combat. Okay, this may not be quite so bad for the Spanish. Roll of 4. Okay, fine. We have avoided combat due to that lucky die roll as the Spanish. Okay, let's interesting. So they just stay there. I don't believe there's any other combat this turn. Nice quick turn, I think. Move everybody back onto their right spaces. Yeah, that's it. There is no further combat. Okay, so we need to do the area control calculations. Uncontrolled here. The Americans retain control there. They gain control of the Yucatan Straits. They lose control, interestingly, of the Florida Straits because there is no ship at sea. The Americans do gain control of the Bahamas, though, and the North Atlantic too. Wow. Okay, the Spanish retain control of the North Yucatan and also the Windward Passage. Don't gain control of Puerto Rico Passage due to the order being transit. You can't control with the transit, but they do lose the Central Atlantic. They have no fleet there anymore. Okay, so VP wise, what that means is 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 VPs for the Americans. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's now a positive score to the Americans. But we need to adjust that for 2, 4, 5 for the Spanish. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we do the combat points. Let's do the Spanish ones first. They sank the San Francisco, which is a CP ship. Somewhere it does tell me what that means in one of the fan-made player raids. So a CP is a protected cruiser. Now that information is not in the official rulebook, but it's there for us. And in terms of victory points, a CP is only half a point, so that doesn't actually score at all for the Spanish, which is slightly unfortunate because the Americans did sink a CA, which is an armoured cruiser, as well as killing the 3-star leader. So that is going to be a total of 3 points for the leader and 1 point for the armoured cruiser. So that's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. They now have a flat 0 VPs all round. However, we do need to take into account Cadiz, which is 3 points for the disrupting it, and then a further 9 points because of the defence of 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the Americans are now on 12 VPs at the end of turn 3. Interesting how Cadiz, probably the most well-defended port in the game at base values, just fell over as though a hot knife through butter basis situation, basically. Okay, right. That means we move on to turn number 4. Nothing needed to be repaired. I flipped the Cadiz counter over. We just need to get rid of the disabled marker there. Moving on to turn 4, which is the 4th of June to the 15th of June. The Americans get a protected cruiser, I think that is. Yep, protected cruiser, the Newark in at Hampton Roads, up the top there. Okie dokie. Wow, what do the Spanish do now? On the plus side, all these guys here are going to have to coal. That's on the positive side. These guys will have to transit back to a friendly port. That's positive. These guys will have to coal, meaning this one and this one can attack Havana. These guys will have to coal or anchor as well. Okay, so Wow, okay, so just thinking here about what the Americans could potentially do and how that's going to affect us. We need, as the Spanish, to anchor or coal, anchor or coal. We'll have to coal both of those because of the VPs. We've got 1, 2, 3, 3 ships there, 3 ships there. That's 6 of our potential 8 that could stay cold. Ideally, I'd like these guys to coal as well for the VPs. This group, perhaps we could patrol, maybe move into. I mean, depending on. Well, these guys would transit back to a friendly port, and this is the nearest friendly port. So if we were to try a blockade or a raid over to here, we would come up against quite a large force there. This is a very tricky thing, but let's do the coaling order. So this one will coal. This one will coal. Secure those VPs. This guy here who previously transited will now patrol. Make sure we get some VPs. This group. We can't go through here, we can't go through here because of that sea control rules, meaning East Coast is a port too far for us to attack, so the only viable target is going to be Florida. We've only got 4 movement points. 1, 2, 3, 4. Furthest we can get is Kingston. Waters outside Kingston in Jamaica, which is the North Utica Basin. Potentially we go around this way. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can only get as far as the South Utica. Oh dear. Okay, the Spanish have a few problems. Because this guy has to anchor or patrol or coal, it may be worth us attacking the port. Let's do that. Let's blockade. Let's blockade the mobile area. That would be a good way of attacking. Whatever I do with these and these, that's the question, isn't it? I think what I'll do, I don't want to lose too many ships, but it would be nice to get some more VPs. So if I patrol with the aim of going into the Atlantic, these guys can just transit and join that patrol. Or maybe they could just stay in Cadiz, maybe help fight in Cadiz. Yep, that'll do. That's what we'll do. Time to pause the camera and assign orders for the Americans. Okay. Turn 4 orders for the Americans have been done. Let's move then the Spanish. Let's move this dice out of the way from last turn. Starting this side, we'll patrol. We have also a patrol there. I think, if I recall correctly, the patrol was moving here. It's getting 2 VPs, and the patrol was moving into the Puerto Rico passage to ensure we get some VPs. These guys are coaling, again giving us some VPs, and these guys are coaling as well, giving us those VPs. So that's potentially 8 VPs for the Spanish, which is quite tasty. Now, what we need to do is look at this group up the top here in the Gulf Coast, because they are blockading. American movement, then this first group here are going to anchor, but we're blockading. Now it is a movement point to go into the port, which I take to mean the blockade will prevent that, meaning those 2 stacks here are at sea. These guys are blockading, so they're going to stay where they are, blockading Havana. This group in the Yucatan Straits will stay where they are because they've anchored. This squadron here in Florida, in Key West, will transit, and they're going to transit. Where are they going to transit to? We could join the fight in Havana. Havana's got some relatively weak ships blockading it. Just 1 strength and 1 defence, all of those. And the 2 ships there are quite strong. There's a 3 attack and a 3 attack there too. Interesting. What's this one doing? This one's transiting as well. But they had a raid order last time, so they do need to finish their turn in a friendly port, and they're going to finish their turn in the Florida Keys, in Key West. This guy here is coaling. I'll sort that stack out in a minute. Meaning that, yeah, these little guys will transit to the Gulf of Mexico, where they will be absorbed by the larger blockading squadron, ready to attack Havana. The only other thing remaining is this unit here, the Newark, which with a 5 movement allowance can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and join the blockade. It could also join this group, or it could just come and sit here in the Bahamas, but it wouldn't control anything. I think we'll have it join the blockade. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The blockade is now that little bit stronger outside Havana. Okay. Orders have been done. Moving to combat. Only place really to worry about combat is here and here in Havana, and the first thing we would need to do here is work out the initiative. So we have 2 ships plus 1, that's 3, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 because of the leader. The Spanish have a total of 6, no point rolling for the Americans. So the Americans gain the initiative, and with an initiative anchor order and a blockade, there is no effect. So those 2 ships, 2 squadrons, basically ignore each other. Okay, but we do get the blockade, and the blockade is on the Mobile port, which is a relatively weak port for the American, well, about standard for the American ports actually, but for ports in general on the weaker side. Certainly compared to Cadiz and Havana, but not that really made much difference for the ships that were blockading Cadiz last turn. Okay, so we have 2 dice, 1 for the Alonso the 12th, 1 for Mantarola the leader, missing both times. The port attacks back with 2 dice, missing both times. We get an attack from the Isabel, and missing. There's no retaliation attack for the port because they attack every other unit. The combat stops, there's no redo of combat, and they further combat round. The attack or the blockade has basically failed. So no VPs for the Spanish from that blockade, which is somewhat frustrating from a Spanish point of view. These guys will blockade Havana though, which should be a much more interesting event. Okay. I think that should have gone that way around. I think I muddled the order up. Okay, because the Newark was definitely the one at the bottom. Right, so 1 die for the Newark, hitting Havana and doing 6 damage. What is up with these dice for the Americans? Right, that's 6 damage, but we retaliate at the full 7 for the Spanish. Hitting on 6s though, and we've got 4 hits. Wow, that's definitely going to take out that ship. Yeah, that ship's sunk. That's a no-brainer. Okay, that ship is sunk. Moving along, we have 1 attack from the Vicksburg, and it is a hit, doing 2 damage, taking the attack total to 9. There's only an 8 defense, disrupting Havana, meaning there is another shed load of points for the Americans from the blockade. This is it's an interesting part of this game, I find, is how do the Spanish prevent this from happening? It's very challenging, I find, and a really interesting puzzle solo. Although I have read on forums that other players have the opposite problem. They find the Spanish win very easily, but I don't know, maybe it's something I'm doing, I don't know. But anyway, that I believe is the end of combat. There's no combat here because they're coaling, nowhere else is being blockaded or anything like that, so we're good to look at area control, starting with the Americans again. 1, 2, 3 areas controlled for the Americans, meaning 3 VPs, and the Spanish have 1, 2, 3, 4, so that's 2, 4, 6, 8 VPs. That's more like it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 VPs. So this bringing the Americans down to 7 VPs. In terms of combat losses, there was a GB ship sunk by the Spanish, and a GB ship is a gunboat with half a point, so that's no additional points to the Spanish for the successful sinking of the Newport, but the Americans do get 3 VPs plus an additional 8, I believe it is, for the disruption of Havana. Yep, an additional 8, bringing their total now to 18. Oh dear, okay, right. Nothing needs repairing, so we don't need to worry about that phase. Moving on to turn 5. No reinforcements in turn 5, so we can go straight into the orders phase. Units that patrolled need to either anchor or coal. They will both coal because I don't really want them to lose the opportunity to get some VPs, although I'm just wondering if it's the best use of the units holding these areas like this. The blockade at the top there in the Gulf Coast, that does also need to coal, which is going to be an issue because that big stack there anchored and can now just well, I say attack, but if they patrol against a coal, there's a 1 in 2 chance of finding them, so, or a 1 or 2 die roll chance of finding them. Meaning we just have these 2 guys here. I do kind of think we need to do some kind of attacking. So we have movement values of 6 and 5. We could get to the Gulf Coast. Not the Gulf Coast, the East Coast. If nothing else, we will hopefully get some decent VPs, because that's a 4 VP area for the Spanish. But then if a blockade, Even better, if I raid, I could raid. I'd have to come back next turn, but if I raid, I fight against the mine value, and the mine value for Hampton Road is 0. So we would not have any retaliation from that port if we raid it. Fantastic idea. What to do with these guys though? I think I'm going to patrol to act as a buffer against these guys, because I just have a suspicion these guys can easily come down here now with these two relatively vulnerable, if low VP value ports. So let us patrol with those guys. Of course, assuming they don't decide to walk through the North Yucatan Basin, they will score some VPs, but I have a suspicion. I could always, they've got 4, I could always bring them here to Puerto Rico. No, I can't because of the coal has to stay there. I could bring them to Windward Passage to make sure they retain those 2 VPs. Okay, these guys here are going to come out and patrol. No, they're going to have to sortie because the guys are sat outside the port, so they will sortie into the North Atlantic in the hope that they decide to do something else, in the knowledge that Florida and East Coast are both relatively exposed. Okay, cool. Let's stop the video there, and I'll come back once I've done the American orders. Okie dokie, movement phase of turn 5. The Americans currently have 18 VPs, way more than enough needing to win. And we have the remainder of this turn and then turn 6 to go. The Spanish will get to do their movement and so on first. And I'll start here with a coal, so they stay put. These guys will patrol, and we're going to go with their 4 movement allowance. 1, 2, 3. These guys are going to raid. Okay, let's let them raid first. So we'll go 1, 2, and these guys will patrol here into the Yucatan. So from the Yucatan Basin to the Windward Passage off the coast of Cuba and Haiti. The group up in the Gulf Coast are coaling. They blockaded last turn, so they don't have any option. A sortie for the group in Cadiz means they go into the North Atlantic and stop, and then we have a coal order there in the Central Atlantic. Okay, Americans. We have 2 squadrons here, one with a raid and one with a patrol. Raid for the Americans is all got a value of 6, a movement value of 6. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 will get them into the Central Atlantic and get raiding the Canary Islands. Unsurprisingly, perhaps a blockade on Cadiz. Patrol here. Interesting challenge now for the Americans. Do we patrol down here and potentially cut off a route through for the Spanish, or do we try and do something up here? I think we'll cut off the route for the Spanish. Yeah, I think we'll go here. They've got a movements of 5, so 2, 3, 4, 5. That's fine. They're going to be there. This squadron outside Havana will coal. have a patrol order on the Yucatan Straits and patrol order on the Gulf Coast. Okay, those units on the Gulf Coast have 5 as their slowest movement, so 1, 2, 3, 4 will allow them to move to the North Yucatan. Well, actually what we could do is we could drop off the 2 there, and those with 6 could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, moving them into this region. They merge with the smaller group, and we now have 2 groups of American squadrons patrolling in that Caribbean region. The other group, the squadron that are currently sat in the Yucatan, will move up to the Gulf Coast. They have movement of 5, that's plenty. Okay, orders on both sides done, movement on both sides done. Let's have a look at resolving some of these conflicts. We have a raid and a coal in the Central Atlantic, 2 patrols in the Windward Passage, a patrol in the North Yucatan, and a patrol versus a coal up there. Oh, and this raid token, and a blockade and a sortie. Okay, quite a lot going on in this turn. Clearly going to be a decisive turn, I think, this one. So let's start here. Raid versus coal. We have 3 versus 2 as the baseline initiative values. So starting with the Spanish, that's going to be a total of 5. The Americans also have a total of 5. Both the Americans and the Spanish have an initiative of 5. In the case of a tie, the Americans do gain the initiative. So let's have a look then. A raid versus a coal. On a roll of 1 or 2, there is a combat between the 2 squadrons. I have a 3, so there's no combat between the squadrons. However, the raid order does mean we combat against the Canaries port. So because it's a raid, we don't fight against the strength value, we fight against the mine value, which is in the top left corner. Now the reason I've done this is because we will not have any retaliation after the first one, because although the combat strength is weaker, it would affect 2 ships rather than just 1. So but what we'll do is we will roll 3 for the American ship, which is the main Tonamo. No damage. We'll roll 3 back for the port. No damage. We'll then roll 1. Sorry, that should have been 4 back, disabling the Montonimo. Roll 1 die from the Columbia on the port, which we've hit, and 5 damage. That port is now disrupted. Okay, so that's more VPs to the Americans. Canaries are disrupted. Disabled ship returns to the nearest friendly port by movement points, which is going to be this one actually. It's going to be up here. It will be considered to anchor and not take part in any combat up here. The other 2 ships, though, they do go back to the Central Atlantic under that raid order, negating any control for the Spanish as well. Okay, we have blockade versus sortie. 2 units in the Spanish squadron, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for the Americans. So I don't know if it's worth rolling, but just for form's sake, we have a total of 6 for the Spanish. Yeah, the Americans have the initiative easily there. So a blockade against a sortie on a roll of 1 to 5. We do have combat. We've rolled a 5, so we've got some combat. Okay, with the Americans as the initiative player. And Shelley from the firing squad is going to give 2 combat buffs. Okay, we have more overlap, somewhat outnumbered again, the Spanish. So we'll roll 7 dice versus 2 in the first combat round, which is the Chicago and the Brooklyn against the Alonzo the 13th. So that's 7 plus 1 for Shelley, that is 8. One hit, multiple disabled, so at the very least the Alonzo is disabled. Rolling a die for the hit, and it's taken 1 damage. Okay, we've finally got some damage that hasn't resulted in absolute destruction of the Spanish ship. And then 2 plus 1, and then 3, that is 6 for the Americans. The New Orleans and the Texas against the Lepanto. Just a 1 hit. And 1 damage. So we have, I meant to put the disabled on there before, we have 1 damage on the Lepanto. Okay, end of that combat round. The Alonzo slinks back to port in Cadiz. The Lepanto, though, is going to be forced to do another combat round. It cannot disengage because it is not faster than all of the other ships. So should the Americans choose to, and I think they probably will, they will press home the attack and they will attempt to destroy the Lepanto. Okay, so it's going to be 7 dice against 1 for the Spanish. And in fact, all of these ships now line up in one big long line. So that's 3, 5, 9, 12 dice. Wow, that ship is doomed. 6, 8, 10, 12 dice. 3 hits. I think it's safe to say with just 1 health point, it's gone. Yeah, that's sunk. So that's sunk. And 1, that is sunk. But it does get 1 dice back, and it's only 1 dice because of the damage that's on it already. And it's already 2, which is nothing, no hit. So we have sunk, or the Americans at least have sunk the Lepanto. Okay, things are not going well because the Americans now get to blockade Cadiz using the same motley crew of ships. And I think we have 3 to start with, plus a star, so that's 4 against Cadiz. 1 hit. And 4 damage. 9 dice back though. Okay, disabled at the very least, and then a further 2 hits. Yeah, that's Chicago is sunk and Shelley is killed. I don't believe the leader automatically swaps. It's my understanding of it, not 100% sure, but we'll see. Anyway, we have 2 dice from the New Orleans to the Cadiz. No hits. 4 dice from the Brooklyn ship on Cadiz. 1 hit. another 4 damage, meaning another hit will disrupt this port again. So that's a total of 8 damage. We do shoot back though with the 4, so that's 5 dice back at the Brooklyn. 1 disabled and 1 hit, doing 1 damage. So we have 1 damage and a disabled on the Brooklyn, and then finally 3 dice against Cadiz from the Texas, doing 2 hits and 6 damage. Cadiz is again disrupted and it does not get to fire back because it's only every other one under a blockade order. Okay, more VP farming for the Americans. But Shelley and the flying squad do end up in the sunk pile. A disabled Brooklyn goes to the nearest port in terms of points, so it also goes over to the Hampton Road area. Howell will stay with the New Orleans and the Texas outside Cadiz. We'll do the raid on the port. There's no need to do initiative because those guys are disabled. So we have a raid, so this is a mine value we're fighting, and a mine value is 0. So we are essentially just going to do straight attacks on Hampton Roads. Starting with 4 dice. We scored 1 hit. And 6 damage. Hampton Roads is destroyed. It has a value of 0 for mine, so there's no attack back. More VPs for the Spanish there. That's nifty. Okay, cool. Patrol versus a patrol with 3 initiative base for the Spanish, modified to 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 base for the Americans, modified to 11. So a patrol versus a patrol, and a 1 to 4, those 2 squadrons fight. No, they do not fight, but they have denied VPs. The only thing remaining is the patrol against the cold here in the Gulf Coast, and with just 2 plus a leader, I think the initiative is going to not be the Spanish. So that's 3. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yep, definitely, definitely initiative to the Americans there. And we will do a patrol versus a coal. So on a 1 or a 2, there will be fights. No combat in the Gulf Coast. Okay. I believe that's everything in terms of combat resolution. Moving straight on then into the VP phase and the area control. The Americans no longer control Yucatan, but they do still control the Gulf of Mexico, and they now control the North Yucatan Basin. No control in the Windward Passage. No control in the Central Atlantic, but the Spanish do control the East Coast, which is valuable for them, very valuable for them. Okay, so from a points perspective then, there is 1, 2 points to the Americans, bringing that to here, minus 2, 6, minus 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that's all right. The Americans have 14 VPs after the end of that resolution. The Spanish do take a further combat, which I think is only a half though, because it's one of those cruisers again. Yep, a CP is only half, so Sorry, no, that's the Americans. The Americans don't get any points for sinking the Lepanto, but the Spanish do get points for the CA and 2 points for the Shelley, for killing Shelley. So 1, 2 for the Spanish, and then a further 1 point. Okay, that's quite helpful for the Spanish there, limiting the American advances through combat. But we now have to do the ports. That's not good news for the Spanish. We have 3 plus 4 at the Canaries. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the Canaries. We have 3 plus 9, so 12 in Cadiz. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then we have for the Spanish Hampton Roads, which is 3 plus 3, that's 6. So the Americans are at 21 at the end of the turn. Okay, we do have a damaged unit that we can show how damage repair works. In fact, we have 2 damaged units. So damage works based on the value on the board there. Hampton Roads has a repair value of 4, meaning it can repair up to 4 points worth of damage, which we will do on the Brooklyn. And the Cadiz here has a repair value of 2, meaning we can repair that 1 damage on the Alonso the 13th. Okay. Final turn. Substantial challenge now for the Spanish. I really don't think they're going to win. So the question is, do we go through to the bitter end or do we call it? In the optional rules, there is an automatic victory condition where if one side gets 29 points, you don't play all the way through to the end of the turn, end of the game at turn 6. Question is, do we do that now, even though we're at 21 for the Americans? Interesting question. I think the answer is probably yes. I don't see how the Spanish can win. This group here would have to go back to a friendly port. These two would both either have to coal or anchor. So no VPs there, basically. No VPs there for the Spanish. And the Americans can blockade here. They can also bring these units round to support a blockade as well. Yeah, I think we'll call it. I don't think the Americans are going to lose now. And that's been the story of every single game I've played. Spanish do quite well, but then it gets to a point where the Americans are able to blockade alternately Cadiz and Havana and start running away with the game. Quite how you can turn that around using just the basic units, I don't know. Although there are optional units, optional rules that allow you to have more units as the Spanish, which I think would make the game much less of a challenge and much more of a balanced conflict, shall we say. Although I'm sure there's a way of winning with the Spanish, but I'm not able to see it at the moment after the 5 or so plays that I've had. Anyway, thank you for watching if you've watched this far, and please like, subscribe, all that kind of thing, and I will see you next time.